This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is not America's sweetheart, Davian. And
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Hi, this is Smash Wrestling promoter, Sebastian Suave, and you're listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I am, of course, your host, James J., and it is a great day for wrestling because we are wrestling with the founder of Smash Wrestling, Sebastian Suave.
Hey, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. How are you?
Doing good. Couldn't be better. And yourself?
I'm good as well. I know Smash is back, and when is the next events coming up?
Yeah, it's a nice and busy summer schedule. We just came off two events recently, April 29th and 30th, that thankfully were very successful and exciting for our fans. And right around the corner, we're just taking a little bit of a longer stretch as we're building to some big events in Toronto and in London, Ontario on June 24th. In London, we'll have the Northern Tournament, which pre-pandemic was an annual tournament of ours that crowned essentially a number one contender for the Smash Wrestling Championship match at Super Showdown, which is another one of our big events. And the next day in Toronto, it's the same day as the AEW pay-per-view Forbidden Door 2 with the New Japan. And earlier in that day, we're collaborating with some of our friends. We will be co-hosting an all-woman show with Femme Fatale at 11 a.m., and that will be followed by Progress Wrestling out of the United Kingdom and Defy Wrestling out of West USA, also collaborating for an event at 3 p.m.
Wow, that's awesome. And where can we find you personally on social media?
Nowhere, because during the beginning of the pandemic, I just kind of took a bit of a social media hiatus, and I stretched it out, and I stuck with it since, unfortunately. But at Smash Wrestling is where you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. At the same time, our Facebook fan page is Smash Wrestling, which our YouTube channel is the same, Smash Wrestling. Our website is smash-wrestling.com. And if you do follow us on any of our social media fronts, a lot of our staff, a lot of our wrestlers, you'll see their contacts. But myself, I like to make myself also very accessible to fans. So although I'm not on social media, fans can always go to the Smash Wrestling website, and they'll see contacts by email and whatnot to reach us. So I do make myself accessible, just not on social media, sadly.
All right, and of course, all of Smash's social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox. All right. So, obviously Smash is one of the more well-known and respected independent promotions in Canada. Where is Smash Wrestling in 2023?
In Canada, the pandemic, I mean, it was the same thing all around the world. Every country had their different rules about what can happen with events and whatnot. So
Right.
in 2021 and 2022, it was a little tougher. So a lot of companies either weren't running or they were running in front of partial audiences. For myself, I just kept a peace of mind where we didn't really run as the result of those restrictions. And nothing against the restrictions. The reality is, Smash has had a bit of a reputation for having, venues of high production and for bringing in fly-in talents from different parts of the world. So when you have a restricted capacity, and let's say you can't go over 150 people or 100 people, you can't really run in such venues that come at a premium cost, and you can't really fly in, international talent. So the decision was made to kind of wait until things were a little more steady, and that was this past August. I think a lot of wrestling companies about a year ago in the spring season of 2022 started running a little more actively. Once we saw that the indie scene was a little more stable for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, we made our return in August. And thankfully, since then, things have been well. And we've kind of, we still value our digital content, but as the landscape changed a lot, we kind of doubled down on focusing on the live events a lot more. So we noticed, it's post-pandemic, and we've been around for 10 years at this point. We've always been very mindful of keeping an eye on our fans and their opinions and taking surveys and seeing where our ticket sales come from. And the reality is, 10 years ago, some of your fans may have been young, single, and 10 years later, they're married and they're relocating and they got a career. So you always got to find new fans and do your best to maintain your previous fans. But the reality is, with the pandemic, there was a big shift there with where your fan base is coming from. And so for us, rather than just run a good event, have them walk in and have them walk out, we doubled down on the live events, as we really wanted to get a good understanding of where people are coming from, what prices they're willing to pay, if they're coming back, what would get them to come back. And I think we've done a good job of that so far. And yeah, we primarily run out of Toronto and London, which are 2 hours apart here in Ontario, Canada. And in 2023, it's kind of, we are in that transition point between knowing what's worked for us and potentially slowly going back towards doing something larger on the digital content front. What that may be, I don't know yet, as we have a few options on the table. So we have those in discussions. So whether it's with a streaming service or television, and we've done both in the past, there are some interesting conversations going here. So it's not so much that I don't want to tell you, it's that we have to kind of have those conversations over the next few months and see, because whichever direction we go, we want to kind of give it a good effort. And that kind of requires understanding what kind of commitment we have with people who would potentially be our partners.
Alright, so a potential streaming or TV deal is in the works.
I mean, there's stuff on the table. We've had discussions, right? So for us, it's this could go for a lot of other independent companies too. There's deals out there that you can say yes to today and tomorrow, and it's done.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it's a good decision in the long term. In the short term, you might see some additional revenue. You might have a little optics of having a little more visibility. But for us, we're trying to commit more to the more meaningful decisions we make as a company. We want it to kind of be centric around stuff that has long-term payoff. So if we're going to do something on the digital content front, we want it to be something that's going to make some meaningful changes 1 year, 5 years from now, right? Not something that, hey, okay, there's a little extra revenue or a couple sales on the side for the month. So it's just about finding the right partners and having the right discussions.
Well, I kind of feel like Smash Wrestling is like the Canadian CCW, but maybe with a better reputation. And you're just going into you're just over 10 years of Smash Wrestling. What does that mean to you, to being a decade old in pro wrestling? Because that's not something a lot of independent promotions get to.
Yeah, it's tough, and for a lot of reasons. So I mean, I think it's just a testament to everyone that I've been fortunate to be surrounded by. And I always say, like, the tripod of a good wrestling company is the staff, the wrestlers, and the fans. So if we're still around after 10 years and we're putting on quality shows and subjectively people consider us to have a good reputation, it means we've been fortunate enough to have a good team. We've had good staff members on our team that have been around, that put out a good body of work for us. We've had good talent that have worked hard for us, that have spoken well of us, and the same thing goes for our fan base. We've had very loyal and rowdy fans who've come back, who've spread the word, and who've represented us well. So you can always pat yourself on the back, but the reality is, myself and I think our brand have been surrounded by a lot of good people, and hopefully that continues to be the case, and that leads to another 10 years.
Well, what is something you know now as a promoter that you wish you knew at the beginning?
Everything. I mean, it's just honest. It's just, I would, that's hindsight, right? You'd handle things differently with staff, with wrestlers, with fans, with ticket pricing, with expansion, with taking on too much, with waiting and being a little too conservative with big goals, with being smarter with contracts, with whether it's with TV or digital streaming, everything. But I think the summary of that is, I think myself and just others in general in this industry, you just you can't predict the future. Everything's a lesson, so you just have to be more self-aware of what lessons you can learn in the now. So there's things that I've had to learn lessons from that it didn't really kick you in the butt till maybe months later or years later, and you waste all that time. So I think the main thing that I've been good at, but I could always wish I was better at, that I think is very important for any indie company, is you always want to not be complacent and keep evolving. I mean, it's very generic to say that, but the reality is it's very easy to fall into the trap of just running a good show of good talent. But the reality is there's so much good talent out there, and there's so many hardworking promoters out there. So as good as your show could be, just having a good show of good talent is a dime a dozen. So that's a lesson I would share with a year one promoter, but that's something that all of us year 5, year 10, year 15 promoters got to remember, because you keep loyalty to what's worked for you. I mean, what was special about Smash, let's say 5 years ago, is just the norm now, right? That's not what's going to make you the buzz company or make you the money that will allow you to put on even bigger shows and take the company to the next level. So that requires a level of humility, right? Because you do something special and people pat you on the back, but then a few months later, a year later, that's just the norm, and you got to accept that. And it's the same in any industry, right? Like the easiest example is Coke, right? They can complain that 50 different soda companies have kind of their own knockoff versions of Coke, and they can complain about it, or they can keep evolving and finding different ways to be at the forefront of the industry, right? And you can find that example in really any industry. So I mean, I guess that'd be the biggest lesson for myself is, and I think you can see it. If you had this conversation with me in depth, and you see kind of some of the stuff we've done, whether it was kind of evolving into heavy production or starting doing the collaboration shows with the Progress Wrestlings, What Culture, CZW, Chicago, all the companies we've done over the years, us being a little more aggressive with expansion out of, it's typically an indie company, at least even 10 years ago, would mostly situated in one market. We got a little clever with expanding. So we've always tried to do something different. And same thing with talent. We went heavy with a lot of talent that have very interesting characters that we can produce vignettes with them, whether it's us taking the lead or collaborating with the talent. So you always want to do something that sets you apart in your market. And the reality is, and a lot of indie promoters won't want to admit this, but 95% of us are regional, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe a lot of companies and fans around the world know who you are, and maybe a lot of them follow you on Twitter, but the heart and soul of your revenue comes from regional ticket sales, and that's not a bad thing. It just means and that's kind of the whole allure of a business that's niche. You have these very loyal and rabid fans that are not far off from you, right? You're running in Toronto. These fans are in Toronto, so don't ignore them. Obviously, enjoy the following and the buzz you can get online, but these fans are the heart and soul of your revenue, and what allows you to grow as a company, right? So we've always found creative ways to offer these fans something different, and I think that's again, that's one of the biggest lessons, is find not what makes you, I guess, the best, but makes you the only in some extent.
Definitely. And you mentioned you had a book. You did a joint show with CCW. how was that interaction with the guys and girls from CCW and DJ Hyde?
Truthfully, it was the same with any company over the years. Whether we've done a collaboration with another company in as a versus show, or we've had a contingency of a roster in for one of our Smash Wrestling shows. I've been fortunate whenever I've done a collaboration, like we've done it with WXW Progress. The list goes on. OWE. We're gonna work again with Progress and Defy, and I'll be working with them again, like I've worked with Shimmer. Every promoter and all these talents that have come in, they've all been all class. Like I've been very fortunate when it comes to collaboration events. People have been easy, especially when they come to our town. They've been grateful for the work we've put, and they've put on a good show for us as our partners. So again, maybe that's just luck, but for what it's worth, it's just people have consistently been easy to work with when it's come to these joint shows.
Well, can you tell us about the current Smash champion, Kevin Bennett, who's almost 1,500 days as Smash champion?
Yeah, I mean it's a very big number for the obvious reason of the pandemic, but I would still credit him a lot, because even taking away the pandemic, I believe he became the champion for us in April of 2019 and carried it through to March of 2024.
I believe so, yes.
When the pandemic started, and then you combine that with our return in August. He's a little shy of, like, a year and a half to 2 years as champion, taking away the pandemic. So even if it's a year and a half, it's nowadays that's still a testament to, you see, especially on the indies, champions that it's hard to remain a champion for over a year on an independent company. It's there, but it's not common, right? So I mean, it's a testament that he's been fresh, he's been consistent, he's been able to carry the main event. And to be blunt about it, he's one of our stalwarts, right? Before the pandemic, we always had our annual our annual awards, and he won most hated for 5 years in a row. So and that's hard because things get stagnant. You see it in pro sports too when people win awards like most valuable or most improved or defensive player of the year. Like, people always want to vote for someone different. So he's someone that I feel has been very consistent, but also ever evolving with his body of work. And we felt that to be the case when we came back. To be blunt, when you come back after a big pandemic, I think everyone was compelled to make changes. Everyone has a bit of a new roster. Everyone doesn't want the same champion that was the champion like 3 years ago. But we come back, we have a bit of fresh roster and a fresh look and some tweaks, but he's someone that you take it show to show and you realize that he's still a champion and he's still a main eventer, and the fans are still engaged in what he brings to the table. So he's special. He's just not a very talented professional wrestler. It's not just a character. He's a real life rapper. He's a real life producer and audio engineer. He makes a living off being a rapper. He's a two you don't want to say two sport or two genres, but he's chased two dreams, and he's amongst the elite on both fronts. So there's a lot of credit to that, and it makes him a very fascinating person to see live.
Can you tell us about the current women's champion, Nikita? She's
Yeah.
a little bit newer, not as many days, I believe 229 days.
Yeah, and so she won the title in her first show back. So her backstory is very interesting. She started wrestling a few years after I did in my younger days, and she was a close friend of mine, and she kind of retired from wrestling very early in her I don't want to say the exact age, but I think it was just in the very low 20s. Maybe even 18, 19, because she started young, and it just, I guess, wasn't her thing at the time. And she has I won't say what it is, but she has a very successful career outside of pro wrestling. And meanwhile, while she was out of wrestling, she's actively in fitness and in competitions. She's training in MMA and jiu-jitsu. And suddenly she found a change of heart where she wanted to come back to wrestling. And suddenly, like, as good as she was in her when she started out, when she was training, she's a different animal. She's in incredible shape. She looks like a star. She is trained in multiple combats, and she has a very interesting background. Speaks multiple languages, and she comes back and she picks it up very quickly. And we're in a scenario where we're required to kind of reassess the women's division in Eastern Canada and see what we're working with. And she was there to run with the ball, and she's done a great job so far, and we've been very thankful for that. And and it was kind of funny because like a lot of people didn't even know who she was, but when an independent wrestler hasn't been around it for 10 years, it's essentially like you're a newcomer. Like most people, she's a rookie, right? They wouldn't know. But I've looked at her as a rookie as well, because who she was 10 years ago, the wrestling isn't even the same. But even again, with her background in combat sport and all that and fitness, it's just a different person essentially. But that's what's made it very interesting.
And now, if only she would actually show up to the shows to defend the championship.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I said,
if only she could just show up to actually defend the championship, because she's taken quite a few vacations since winning the championship.
Yeah, no, well, that's kind of the fun of having a villain, right? So she's been actually quite present for us on quite a few events, but the first title defense or event she missed, she had an actual vacation booked, so we kind of played that up to the character where she gets to go do a promo while she's in the Caribbean doing, on the beach and all that, and just recently she had to unfortunately not appear for one of our events due to private reasons. Nothing alarming, but there was a very understanding personal obligation that prevented her from appearing. But barring those two events, she's been quite consistent and been there to defend her title. But we've always been big on a champion doesn't have to be on every show. They don't have to defend the title on every show, and it kind of makes the title defenses kind of hold a little more value. So you try to find that middle ground between not being there too often and being there full time.
Right, definitely. Now, obviously, you're the promoter of Smash Wrestling. You are a wrestler as well, and you've done some pretty impressive things in your career as well. The one thing that I'm a big arena guy. I love my arenas, and you competed in the famed korakuen in Japan. What was that moment and that experience like, competing in one of the most famous arenas, not just in Japan but in the world?
Yeah, like I think that's one of the best things I did in my earlier years. It was when I started Smash in 2012. Like I think I was about 5 years or 6 years into my career, and I was very active at trying to get out there. And when I became a promoter, it kind of became a tough juggle of balancing the two. But one thing I was very proud that I managed to get in there before promoting really just skyrocketed, and I didn't expect it to, was I got out there to other countries and wrestled in some cool places. Like I was at my first match in Japan with 01. I just thought I was going to go in front of a couple hundred people at a gymnasium, and then I find out we're at an outdoor sumo festival in front of 5,000 people.
Wow.
And then you're a foreigner from another country, and I'm humbly speaking, I was a very young wrestler, so it's not like I'm like a TV guy or anything, but a lot of fans in the crowd were chanting my name, and I found out it's a sign of respect. So when people come from a different country, they educate themselves to know who they are so they can kind of welcome them. And so that was a very humbling experience. And, over the weeks that led to also wrestling at Kirk and Hall, which it's weird. Like, I think bell to bell. Like when you're wrestling there, you're not thinking much of it just because it's just another ring and just another venue, and the setup is the setup. But I think it's when you walk in the first time and you're walking in with your bag or your suitcase, and you kind of understand it's Korakuen Hall, and you kind of have a mental checklist of all the greats that have wrestled here, and it's a surreal feeling, and one that it's something that I think younger wrestlers should do a little more. And it's tough because you're trying to you're always told as a young wrestler, wrestle as much as you can and get all your reps to get better, which is true. But sometimes you got to take a bit of a risk and maybe lose a couple of your bookings or places that you're afraid that you're a regular, that you don't want to lose out on a return to get out there to other countries. And it might mean that you got to go somewhere and train for a few months, and you're worried, well, am I just training or am I just wrestling? And the reality is that, for me, it's a little different. I'm very big on life experiences. To tell me that I'm going to go live in Japan for 3 months, mind you, like I won the 01 USA tryout to do that, but there's a lot of opportunities for wrestlers to go to the UK or to Japan or Mexico and go train somewhere. And like the worst case scenario is you go see another country and make friends and network with other wrestlers in different places. And there is no worst case. It's a win-win scenario. But for myself, when I've gone to like Mexico and I've gone to Japan, and to be fortunate to do it as a wrestler, it's just, I think it also makes you very hungry as a younger wrestler, because you go to these places, and that's like, not to take away from Canada and the US. I think the grass is always green on the other side. So a lot of people from other countries, like they'll come to Smash and they'll be like, wow, this is amazing. Or I'm sure stateside someone will go to PWG or GCW or a bunch of wonderful places. And yeah, I love AAW. I think they're great too. And like, a lot of these great companies beyond, and they'll sing our praises. But like for me, it's like when I went to Mexico and you're in this like gladiator like stadium, and the entranceway is a giant 15-foot like luchador mask like entranceway with smoke. It's like, or like I said one earlier about that sumo hall outdoors, 5,000 people. It's like wow, like you're experiencing something you couldn't compute as a professional wrestler. So, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? Wrestling is present in many countries, so you get to experience wrestling through the different cultures, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's where there's the allure of North America and enjoying wrestling. When I guess like Europeans or Mexicans, Japanese wrestlers come to PWG, they kind of get a maybe an experience that they may not get back home. And so, yeah, it was a big blessing to be at Korakuen, but it's just a greater extension of experiencing different cultures. And as a wrestler, it'd be a shame to just experience the beauty of pro wrestling just regionally. It's great to get out there.
Now, you've been on PWI's top 500 list 7 times, and 5 of them was in a row. Some people are lucky to get on that list once. What does it tell you about you yourself as a pro wrestler that you were consistent enough to be on the list 5 times in a row, 7 times in total?
Yeah, well, first of all, like incredible research on your end. Kudos there. I had an idea. I had a rough idea of how many times or consecutive years, but no, I couldn't even tell you the precise numbers. But no, that was very cool, and that was around the time just before I became a promoter, and I think it trickled into my probably the first year of being a promoter. And yeah, I mean, I think it was it's a testament to getting out there. The reality is, if you want to, I mean, it's a subjective list, and I'm not even saying this in a negative way, but if you want to get on that list or any list, or just in general to have your praises sung by others, you can't just stay in one place. So, it means that I think when I did get myself to Japan or Mexico, whether I did get myself out to Eastern Canada or found ways to cross the border in the U.S., I hopefully made the right impressions on the right people who saw my effort. And really, at the end of the day, I think, again, it's subjective, but to me, whether it's PWI or any other list, if people are going to sing your praises, it really comes down to many things, but it really comes down to 2 things. It's what kind of platforms you get on and what kind of opponents you face. So if people feel that you've got onto respectable brands and promotions, and that you face some premium talent and you've held your own, then I think that gets reflected in how people speak of you or rank you or whatever like that. And I think it was very humbling. I think a lot of wrestlers have said this with PWI's list. People don't live and die by it, but at the end of the day, we were all younger and we all looked at those lists, and we bought subscriptions to those magazines. So it's kind of cool when you get older to see that you've made the list yourself. And yeah, even if you take it with a grain of salt, it's still cool.
Now, you actually met Pat Patterson, one
Yeah.
of the greatest minds in pro wrestling of all time. What was that conversation and that experience like?
It was just so it was perfect. It was perfect because it was in Vegas for the Cauliflower Alley reunion, and it was surrounded by just a bunch of people who were friends of his and friends of mine, and just sharing a beer and just catching up, telling stories. But um, the situation for me couldn't be any better because essentially he was trying to rid me because a few of his friends, who were my friends, they liked me and they wanted him to just kind of rid me and give me a hard time, and I just rolled with the punches. And he laughed and he was like, "Well, you have an answer for everything," and you know, and to know that a guy like himself found me hilarious and was trying to rid me, and saw that I guess I can not shoot, but I can promo on the fly. It was kind of a little fun, and I think stuff like that in wrestling is always more memorable. Obviously, you'd love to be in a situation where someone evaluates you as a talent and tells you great things, but I don't know. For me, it's like life memories. You gotta kind of appreciate them, and this was a unique setting where, on that particular night, him and a lot of other people were very kind to me and kind of made a bit of a lifetime memory there about kind of how I just walked in and I just fit in with everyone and made me feel welcomed. And yeah, I mean, again, I always try to think about the little kid in me who watched, wrestling religiously, to be like, hey, one day Pat Patterson's going to try to like rib you and you're going to keep up with him. And, him and a bunch of other legends are going to kind of sing your praises. I mean, that's a cool story, right? So stuff like that means a lot to me.
I can't. That does sound amazing, honestly. All right. Onto a controversial subject: pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Because I've always had it. I just don't see the controversy. I'm impartial where people are either it's like it's forbidden or it's loved. I'm very easygoing. I'm like, do what makes you happy. So like for me, I don't like pineapple on pizza. But I understand if some people like it or don't like it, it's fine. I don't, because if I told you, do you do bacon on pizza or mushroom on pizza or whatever else, you either say yes or no and you go on about your day. It's not controversial. I just wish it was the same with pineapple, where people just either like it or not, and then you say, to each their own. But I like it, and I think it comes down to my background. My background's European and Middle Eastern, and there's a lot of fruits and veggies in a lot of dishes. And I think for people who come from, whether it's island backgrounds or Middle Eastern backgrounds, there's a lot more unconventional ingredients in foods. So I'm very easygoing. I have a very flexible taste palette, but I don't know. I figured the controversy would be more so like anchovies or something. Pineapple just seems very mild to be controversial for me.
You haven't heard some of the answers we've had on this show for one reason or the other.
Yeah, see, it just baffles my brain though. Like people will get very heated about pineapples.
Oh, there was a wrestling event, purely on the based off of people that liked pineapple and didn't like pineapple. It was very controversial.
There you go. What a time to be alive.
Alright, I do have to ask, you are a promoter. will we ever see in Smash Wrestling Psycho Mike versus The Rock Part 3?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, the answer with Psycho Mike, it has to be yes to everything. That everything and anything is possible. I mean, the vision he has, or the open-mindedness he has to, you don't want to just typecast it to comedy, but like there's just so many creative things he's been involved with that you never know. He's sometimes it's the stuff that you want to see part two, and sometimes he just comes up with something completely out of nowhere that you couldn't even compute until you saw it in a ring. So yeah, it's I'd say yes to everything.
I don't think you could keep the fans in there for 2 weeks like the Tungsten Man match, but I'm sure
Yeah.
you can come up with. And obviously, you would have to do a little collaboration with Backyard Pro, obviously as well.
Yeah.
All right. On a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years in Smash Wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, the goal should be to not be where you are now, and that's has nothing to do with now being bad. It's just ever evolving. So for us, I mean, we've always been known to expand into different markets. Post pandemic, we decided to kind of slow that down and kind of, you know, like I said earlier, just view and determine like what the best course of action is. And for us was, we'll start with Toronto and London. Those are your two home bases. You know, you don't have to get as aggressive going back into the other markets. I'd rather have one or two markets that are home runs than to kind of, have mediocre shows all across the board. And yeah, so I think if we can kind of find our footing, especially with digital content, I would see us definitely scaling into different markets and definitely scaling with whether it's TV or some kind of streaming, where hopefully we have a very regular schedule, both with live events, but also with what we're streaming, whether it's a weekly episodic show or a bi-weekly stream. I've always been very interested in, it's nothing new, but live pay-per-views have done well in wrestling. My take has always been that I mean, if you just look at Netflix or anything, like, you don't see professional sports on it, because while virtually every single TV show or movie has made its way to streaming, people consume sports live. And
Right.
wrestling being sports entertainment, there is an element of sports where people like to consume wrestling live. I mean, we've all subscribed to streams and watched something, a couple days after it's been released. But ideally, all of us prefer to catch sports as it's happening. And same thing with wrestling. Like, no one wants to watch WrestleMania a week after it happens. So, if we are to scale to a point where we can have people's attention on a weekly or bi-weekly regularity, I think there should be something said about finding out how to find a balance with potentially having live pay-per-views every now and then. And again, that's nothing innovative, but it's something that we haven't done. We've done streaming where we've had a 48-hour turnaround from when our live event to the release has been, and that's insane, and that's a big testament to our producer Alan and what he's done. But yeah, it's just if you're gonna expand, and that means people in your markets aren't going to catch the events in the other markets, which in turn means that they want to see the events they're missing. So I think live pay-per-views would be a good way to go. And 5 years from now, truthfully, I'd love to be doing something that I'm not even thinking about right now. I'd love to have an exciting idea a year from now or 2 years from now. That it's a little vague, but like, if I have all the answers for what I want to do 5 years from now, it means I'm not growing fast enough. So
Right.
I'd love to have some ambitious goals I hit in 1 to 3 years, and then whatever happens in 5 years is something I couldn't even compute back then.
Alright, and since we're nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom. This is our speed.
Sounds nerve-wracking, but exciting and nerve-wracking.
This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready?
No, I had no choice.
Excluding yourself, greatest wrestler of all time.
It's always been in different eras. Roddy Piper's who got me into wrestling when I was like 4 or 5 years old. It evolved into Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero. And I've been asked this question a few times, but like nowadays it's hard to just like pick one person. I'm just very, and it's never as when who you consider as the greatest wrestler active right now. I've just as a promoter, I'm very keen in finding the Psycho Mike, the Kevin Bennett's, the Charles Crowleys, the guys who are like the next potential breakout guy. So it's hard to pinpoint that all to one answer, but I guess if you go with who was the first person, it would be Roddy Piper for me.
Worst wrestler.
Well, worst wrestler, I'll disappoint you with that. I try not to put myself in a. It's not even worried about the backlash. I try to put myself in a positive space and think about the positive things. So I wouldn't want to speak ill of anyone, but I guess the easy answer would be someone who's not a wrestler, right?
Well, we'll give you the default answer, and that is Eva Marie.
There we go.
You're main eventing WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who is your opponent?
Ooh, Eddie Guerrero.
Alright. If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
Good question. That would require a lot of thinking, but I would, I'd go with Eddie Guerrero again. It's a great song.
Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is...
It's a work.
We would have also accepted taste great on toast.
There you go.
Squash. Vegetable or fruit?
I'll go with vegetable, but I'm open-minded to being wrong.
Well, it is a fruit. Tomato love.
There you go. Yeah, it was 50-50, so I took a shot there.
New Japan wrestler Taichi, his ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
Oof. For budget for ring gear?
Yes, what's the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
Oh, for ring gear. Choose your own adventure is one of my favorite answers. When people ask for my opinion, even if it's like, where do you turn, left or right, when you hit an intersection? My wife hates that answer, but I say choose your own adventure. So I would say the same thing. I mean, if you want to go half butt cheek, full butt cheek, no butt cheek, choose your own adventure.
Okay. I actually love that answer. And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
Definitely not.
And that is the correct answer. And
That was a tough one.
yes. And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for coming on and doing this with me.
No, likewise. Thank you for having me. It was a little fun, and again, it was nice to see that you did your homework on a few fronts, especially with the PWI stuff. That was cool.
Oh yeah, we like to keep it interesting for our guests. And once again, where can we find Smash Wrestling upcoming events and such?
Even beyond the June events I mentioned, for now, I'd say definitely people make that a priority. The Northern Tournament is always an exciting one to crown a number one contender going into a big show. Every August, we typically do Super Showdown. But the Toronto shows we're going to have with Progress Wrestling, Defy Wrestling, with Femme Fatale and ourselves, those should be some exciting events. And, we should have the Canusa Classic returning this summer, which is an all-women's tournament featuring Canada versus U.S. So to keep tabs on us, smash-wrestling.com, at Smash Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram, Smash Wrestling for Facebook and YouTube. We post and update ourselves quite frequently, so a lot of exciting things around the corner if people keep an eye on us.
And of course, you don't have to go looking for those links. All of the links will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Cashbox, simply click the link and you have a look here on whatever device you're on. You have no excuse. Give them a damn follow.
There you go. I like that.
And for that women's tournament, I'd like to put a bid in for Becca, the pop star. I'll go.
There you go. Definitely has a lot of an upswing this past year. So nice to see. There's a lot of talent out there that are really making a name for themselves this past year. So it's exciting.
Oh yeah, Becca's been a fan favorite for us since we've interviewed her when she was still basic Becca. So we got a soft spot for her.
There you go.
Of course, thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment on YouTube and Castbox. Of course, this is sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us next Tuesday and Wednesday for new interviews. Follow the show at Wrestling with E, but on Twitter and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing, and links to those interviews and so much more. You can follow me personally at JamesJ993. Alright, Sebastian, when I say Wrestling Wit, you say entertainment, okay?
Sounds good.
For our very special guest, Sebastian Suave, Coleco Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with
Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.